The walls of Mid-State Correctional Facility had always carried an eerie weight, a cold reminder of punishment and confinement. But for Messiah Nantwi, 22 years old, those walls became a place of unimaginable horror. Young, full of potential, and trapped within a system designed to hold him accountable, Messiah entered that prison with the hope feigned, but present that he could serve his time and eventually reclaim his life. That hope was brutally extinguished. The reports are harrowing. Messiah was beaten to death by the very people entrusted to protect him. Prison guards, tasked with maintaining order and ensuring the safety of inmates, became perpetrators of unspeakable violence. According to multiple sources, including court documents and ongoing investigations, the beating was not an isolated act but part of a coordinated attack. The charges against several guards are severe murder, gang assault, conspiracy. It's a chilling reminder that authority, when abused, can become one of the most dangerous forces imaginable. Messiah's life before that day was full of the ordinary struggles of youth. Friends remember him laughing loudly, teasing relentlessly, full of energy that could fill any room. He was a young man with dreams that stretched beyond the narrow walls he would eventually inhabit, dreams of working, learning, and perhaps finding love and stability in a world that had not always been kind. At 22, the world should have been opening before him. Instead, it closed in one of the most tragic ways imaginable. The morning of the attack was reportedly like any other in the prison. Inmates shuffled through routines, guards patrolled the hallways, and the facility hummed with the quiet tension that defines most correctional institutions. But beneath the surface, something malignant was brewing. Evidence gathered during investigations suggests that several guards orchestrated the assault, targeting Messiah with a level of cruelty that defies comprehension. The violence was not just physical, it was psychological, intended to humiliate, dominate, and ultimately destroy. Surveillance footage, eyewitness testimony, and forensic reports paint a chilling picture. The body of evidence suggests a sustained attack, with multiple officers participating, aware of one another's actions, and united in their intent. It was not a momentary lapse of judgment. It was premeditated, deliberate, and executed with shocking efficiency. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Prison staff and law enforcement scrambled to respond, but the damage was already done. Messiah did not survive. News of his death sent shockwaves through the facility and beyond. For the families of prisoners, it was a terrifying confirmation of a fear they had always carried quietly, that those entrusted with power can, and sometimes do, abuse it with deadly consequences. For Messiah's family, grief is immeasurable. His parents, siblings, and extended family are left with a void that can never be filled, a hole in the fabric of their lives that no justice can fully repair. They remember him as a vibrant young man, quick with a smile, stubborn when he needed to be, fiercely protective of those he loved. They remember the little things, the way he hummed while cooking, the way he called home to check in even from within the prison walls, the way he maintained a spark of optimism in a place designed to extinguish hope. The emotional impact extends far beyond his immediate circle. The story of Messiah Nantwi has become a rallying cry for advocates of prison reform and human rights. It exposes the vulnerability of incarcerated populations, particularly young men who are often subjected to both systemic neglect and direct violence. His death is a reminder that the prison system, which claims to prioritize order and rehabilitation, can sometimes become a crucible of unchecked cruelty. Legal proceedings are underway, with multiple guards facing serious criminal charges. But as the community watches, questions persist. How could this happen in a state-run facility with oversight? How were multiple officers able to act in concert without immediate intervention? And perhaps most importantly, how do we prevent this from happening again? These questions are not just rhetorical, they are urgent, demanding answers from a society that must reckon with the balance between authority and accountability. Journalists covering the case emphasize the human dimension. Messiah was more than a number, more than a headline. He was a young man whose life was cut short by an abuse of power so severe it shocks even those familiar with the prison system. The coverage highlights both the specifics of the attack and the systemic issues that allow such tragedies to occur. It is a story that is difficult to hear, and even harder to process, yet one that must be told. In communities across New York and the United States, activists are using Messiah's death to spotlight prison conditions, staff accountability, and the treatment of vulnerable populations. Candlelight vigils, protests, and online campaigns have sprung up, all demanding justice and systemic change. The grief is public, but so too is the resolve. People are refusing to let Messiah's death fade quietly into the margins of statistics and reports. Psychologists and social workers point out that violence within prisons has a ripple effect. Every inmate who witnesses abuse suffers emotionally and psychologically, often for years. Families of victims endure trauma compounded by helplessness, and staff who refuse to participate in or condone abuse still carry the burden of witnessing horrors they cannot prevent. Messiah's story is not an isolated tragedy, it is a reflection of structural vulnerabilities that leave the powerless exposed to those with unchecked authority. As the legal process unfolds, the nation watches. Body-worn cameras, surveillance footage, and eyewitness accounts form the basis of the case against the guards, and prosecutors are seeking the maximum penalties for those responsible. Yet for the families and friends, justice is only part of the equation. Healing is equally important, though no amount of legal reckoning can truly restore what was lost. There is also a broader societal reflection. Messiah's death forces Americans to confront uncomfortable truths about incarceration, institutional violence, and the delicate ethics of power. It asks us to consider how humanity can be maintained within systems designed for control. It challenges communities, lawmakers, and correctional authorities to prevent abuse, hold perpetrators accountable, and ensure that tragedies like this do not repeat. For those who knew Messiah personally, memories are bittersweet. They recall his laughter, his stubborn optimism, and his fierce loyalty. They cling to the moments when he was fully alive, reminding themselves and the world that he was not defined by the tragedy that ended his life, but by the life he lived before that moment. In the quiet aftermath, the prison continues to operate, routines persist, and the wheels of justice slowly turn. Yet the echoes of Messiah Nantwi's life and death remain, carried in courtrooms, memorials, and public consciousness. His story is a testament to the consequences of unchecked power, the vulnerability of youth in confinement, and the enduring need for transparency, accountability, and reform in correctional institutions. And in that reflection, there is a call for action. A call to recognize the humanity of every individual behind bars. A call to demand oversight and reform. A call to honor Messiah by ensuring that his death is not forgotten, and that it becomes a catalyst for meaningful change. Messiah Nantwi, 22, may no longer walk among us, but his story continues to resonate. It is a story of injustice, but also of awakening, a reminder that even in systems designed to control, the human cost of cruelty can never be ignored, and the need for justice is eternal.